Welcome to Lesson 3, Tutorials, Examples, and Practice. In Lesson 3, we'll talk about making inferences, synthesizing, and a number of literary terms to focus on while reading chapters 5 and 6. Lesson 3, Part 2, moves on with synthesizing and the final literary terms for Of Mice and Men. If you haven't watched Lesson 3, Part 1, please do so now. If you have watched it, go ahead and continue watching the remainder of this tutorial. Thoughtful readers synthesize in order to integrate new information with their existing knowledge to come to a more complete understanding of the text. Synthesizing is when readers weave together what they read, along with their own ideas, into new complete thoughts and insights. Synthesizing has an important purpose. Readers comprehend better when they sift through information to make sense of it and to act upon it, such as judging or evaluating the author's purpose to form a new idea, opinion, or perspective. Synthesizing is the highest and most complex form of comprehension. There are many things that you can do in order to synthesize. You could use questioning strategies such as, how has my thinking changed from reading that piece? And, what was the author trying to teach me or tell me? You could also discuss judgments and opinions with others. Also, be sure to ask questions with no clear answers. There's more you can do. You could maintain the cognitive synthesis as you read, including monitoring the overall meaning, important concepts, symbols, and themes in the text. You could also retell or summarize what you have read and extend the literal meaning of a text to the inferential and sometimes figurative level. Let's look at some examples. Although synthesizing is also used on a large scale, as in after reading a book or after reading several chapters, you can also think about specific passages. Since we're not done reading the book yet, we're going to look at an example of a specific passage. This passage reads, I ought to have shot that dog myself, George. I should not ought to have let no stranger shoot my dog. I can ask myself, what was the author trying to teach me? When I think about this and maybe why Candy would say this, I thought that maybe the author was trying to illustrate that people often have to make difficult decisions and sometimes they wish they would have handled them differently. I don't know that for sure. I'm also including an inference in my synthesizing, but I'm thinking about why maybe Candy would say something like that and why the author would include it for me to read. Now it's your turn to practice synthesizing. Read the passage, then think, what was the author trying to teach me or tell me? You can pause the video now if you need a few minutes to think. What'd you come up with? For me, a guy goes nuts if he ain't got no buddy. Don't make no difference who the guy is, long as he's with you. To me, maybe the author's trying to tell me, how important it is to have other people, relationships, family, friends, people to talk to, people to listen to you. If you don't have somebody like that, it can be awful. Maybe you don't actually go nuts or go crazy, but you need that companionship, just like George and Lenny. Now that we're done talking about making inferences and synthesizing, I have a few final thoughts for you before you finish reading Of Mice and Men. Remember, make inferences while reading. Add the words on the page to what you already know. Draw conclusions. Also, remember to synthesize. Think about what you can learn from the characters and events. What can you take with you into your own life? Also, be sure to keep the following literary terms in mind: internal conflict, external conflict, foreshadowing, symbol, and theme. Remember, internal conflict is a struggle that takes place within a character, person versus self. While reading the end of the novella, identify an internal conflict. External conflicts are struggles that take place with another character or outside force, such as person versus person or person versus nature. While reading the end of the novella, identify an external conflict. Foreshadowing is hints or clues that the author gives the reader about what will happen in the future. As you read the end of the novella, identify an example of foreshadowing. Think about clues from the previous chapters of the book that led to the events in the end of the book. A symbol is a concrete object used to represent an idea or emotion, or it's anything that stands for or represents something else. What symbols can you identify at the end of the novella? Theme. Theme is the central message. It could be stated directly or suggested by details of the work. What do you think readers can learn from this novella? What is the central message? What is the author trying to make readers see and understand? That concludes our final lesson. You're now ready for the Lesson 3 assignment. Return to the Lesson 3 webpage for directions.